Russia, out of nowhere, until very relatively recently, was being left alone. But now, the demonization of Russia is almost laughable. Look, Russia wants war. Look how close it put its country to our military bases. It obviously wants, he wants trouble. The NATO war machine, and what it is, it's simple. Demonize, destroy. Demonize, destroy. Demonize, prepare the public mind to destroy. This is how it works. This is why they're demonizing Russia now. Russia has not seen such an amassing of hostile military forces on its borders since 1941. And Lithuania and Estonia signed milestone deals on status of US troops on their soil. In other words, they're being occupied increasingly by US troops. And the propaganda for 2-year-olds, it's the Russians are coming. When in fact, NATO is coming onto the borders of Russia. And Hermann Goering, of course, a famous Nazi, had it right when he said, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in any country. That's how the Nazis worked. That's how these Nazis are working. And I'm not saying Putin is a Sunday school teacher or anything like, but the idea that he's Stalin who wants to roll the Russian military across Europe is such a joke. It's unbelievable. And this is the Third World War agenda made simple. It's the Russians. Everything is the frickin' Russians. I've got a cold. It's the Russians. I've got a flat. It's the Russians. I burnt the toast. It's the Russians. Can't trust them. Russia hacked the US election. Ah! Evidence. Bugger all. Made it up. These are declassified files that have just come out, which are involved from 1962 again, this guy Lemnitzer of Operation Northwoods, and they are plans to fake a Russian attack, blame it on the Soviet Union to justify a war. This is not new. Those two countries could work together, but they're not meant to work together, and so they're driven apart on purpose. And if you go for Iran, you get China and Russia, and the three come together. And that's the plan. That's where they want to take it. Problem, reaction, solution, or PRS. And it works like this. Covertly create the problem, blame someone else for it, glean the reaction from the public, something must be done, and then third, offer the solution to the problem you have covertly created but blamed on someone else, and that solution is to change society as you plan to change it all along. Problem, reaction, solution is the biggest transformative mind technique of them all. And there's another version that I call no problem, reaction, solution. This is just, here's the word again, this is just the perception of a problem to justify a solution. And there's no better example than weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to justify a catastrophic war. And problem, reaction, solution is based on fear. Fear of what has happened so that you look to the government to protect you with the solution. How it works, we terrify you and then we do what we want. That's it. Here you go, we fund and arm terrorists and then use them as an excuse to take your freedoms away. Works every time. It's been working for decades and decades and decades. More and more people are realizing it, but it still works. Nothing transforms a society globally or nationally than a war. Once the war has happened, big or small, that society is never, ever the same again. And the bigger the war, the longer the war, the greater the transformation of society, which will never return and revert to how it was before. And that is why bombs are the calling cards of the West. They are there to acquire more and more land, more and more resources, and to transform human society. No money for people, but there's always money for war. Always money for war. When's the last time a politician said, we can't go to war, we can't afford it? There's always money for war. This is a recent news story. America tests the most dangerous nuclear bomb ever produced. F-15 drops $1 trillion super nuke. The US war machine's annual budget could buy every homeless American a $1 million home. So why don't they? Because war is crucial to what I'm talking about. They are hungry, let them eat tanks. See, war is good for the agenda because it acquires more land, transforms society, it justifies a police state at home against the baddies, and austerity is good because more and more people get pulled in here, and if you're spending vast amounts on war, you haven't got money to spend on people. And Orwell talked in 1984 about the endless war, the war that never ended, and we have it. It's called the War on Terror. When do you know a war on terror is over? You never know. You know when two people fight and one wins or whatever, it's over. But when does a war on terror end? You never know. You never know when another terrorist attack's coming. Therefore, it's an endless war. The war on terror is a war on freedom to justify the transformation of human society, not least in privacy and freedom of speech. The war of terror has many elements. These are the two major ones. To justify invasion of target countries that you want to invade and take over, and two, to justify the police state at home to protect the people from the terrorists by taking their freedoms away. Fear, fear. Ooh, save us. And this guy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was one of the demo cons. When he said what he thought should happen, he was telling you what was going to happen in his books. And Brzezinski wrote The Grand Chessboard in 1997, in which he said that to control the world, you had to control Eurasia, this massive landmass between Europe and China, Russia, down into the Middle East. In September 2000, an organization in America called the Project for the New American Century produced a document calling for America to fight multiple theater wars and regime change a list of countries. And they named the countries they wanted to regime change, September 2000. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran, North Korea, China, Lebanon was in there as well. Just a few months, a very small number of months after the document was published, the people that wrote it came to power with the Bush administration, either in front of the camera or behind it. So they came to power in January 2001. And they also said this in that document in September 2000, talking about what they needed to happen to get this process of regime change and multiple theater wars to happen. Further, the process of transformation, regime change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. 9 months after these people came to power in the Bush administration, 1 year to the month that they produced that document, America had what Bush called at the time the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, 9/11. It all started with the attacks of 9/11 and the whole process that that document wanted to happen started to unfold as a result of those attacks. And this guy, General Wesley Clark, he was a NATO Supreme Allied Commander, he said on this program, which you can see on the internet, that the Project for the New American Century had instigated a coup on America, and they wanted us to destabilize the Middle East, turn it upside down, make it under our control. And that is what has been unfolding ever since, hidden by apparent randomness of war. And let's go back now to Brzezinski's map of Eurasia and all the countries that have since been invaded or demonized, being prepared for invasion, are all in this area of the world. No accident. They have their 9/11 They have their problem, and the solution was picking off the countries on the list from September 2000. First of all, they go into Afghanistan and then Iraq. And Iraq, you had Tony Blair in Britain and Boy George Bush in America. And we now know, some of us said it at the time, wrote it at the time, they lied to us, lied for those that control them, about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Why? Because the list said, invade Iraq, remove Saddam Hussein. There was no reason to do it at that time, so they made one up. It is that simple. And let us not forget mainstream media, who ridicule anyone who even questions 9/11, that the very same people, not the same agencies, the same people that told us there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to justify a catastrophic war and all that's followed, were the same people that told us the official story of 9/11. And yet they accept one, they were lied to now, but still accept 100% what the same people told them about that pivotal event in the transformation of human society. So, Iraq down, now Libya. Now note, by the time Libya, another one on the list, is ticked off, Bush is gone. Now it's Obama, a Democrat, the other party. Blair's gone. Now it's David Cameron, a conservative, and the other party. And Clinton's in there. But they're picking off the same list. Why? Because that force that controls whoever's in power is driving the whole thing. And so you had this situation where they said that Gaddafi was killing his own people, so to protect them from violence, they bombed them from the air.
We came, we saw, he died.
So what did they do? This is how they do it. They fund and arm freedom fighters, and they attack the regime, in this case Gaddafi. At this point, politicians in the West, Western media, when the target regime, in this case Gaddafi, starts shooting back, they can't get to a microphone quick enough. He's killing his own people! So send the boys in. And that's how it works. And then Libya down, Syria, and they played the same game there exactly. So this is former French Minister for Foreign Affairs, Roland Dumas, on French television, talking about Syria. He said, I'm going to tell you something. I was in England 2 days before the violence in Syria, 2 years rather, before the violence in Syria, on other business. I met with top British officials who confessed to me that they were preparing something in Syria. This was in Britain, not in America. Britain was going or organizing an invasion of rebels into Syria. They even asked me, he said, although I was no longer Minister for Foreign Affairs, if I would like to participate. Naturally, I refused. This operation goes way back. It was prepared, preconceived, and planned. He goes on. This operation goes way back. It was prepared, preconceived, and planned in the region. It is important to know that this Syrian regime has a very anti-Israeli stance. Consequently, and I have this from the former Israeli Prime Minister, who told me, we'll try to get on with our neighbors, but those who don't agree with us will be destroyed. He's killing his own people. And Henry Kissinger said, it is not a matter of what is true that counts, but what is perceived to be true. It's all a script. It's all a movie script. It is not a random series of events. And now Mr. Populist man, Mr. Anti-Establishment man comes into power. It's all going to change now. And the demonization of these countries has continued under him. All countries on the same list.